In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the front motor mount on your Honda Pilot. Let's get started. Using a 10mm socket, loosen the terminals on the battery. Remove the negative first. Pop it off to the side. Remove the positive. Loosen the wing nuts. Then remove the poles. And pull the bracket back as I pull the battery out. And remove the battery from the car. Reach down right in front of the starter and remove the dipstick. We're going to remove the 2 bolts out of the rubber isolator next to the motor mount using a 12mm socket. Remove the bolt. Remove the front bolt on the isolator. Reach down, grab the isolator, and remove it from the vehicle. Remove the top nut on the motor mount. Using a 17mm socket, remove the top nut. Using a piece of wood on a jack, we're going to go under the transmission and we're going to push it up just a little bit. You may need to adjust this while doing the job to get more or less space. Using a 14mm socket, we're going to remove the bolts out of the mount that goes to the block. I cracked mine free and I'm going to take it out with an electric tool. Loosen the last bolt for the plate going to the block and then remove all of the bolts. We're going to fully remove the bottom right bolt last. We'll have to slide the top plate forward with the other 2 bolts out to be able to remove the last bolt. Remove the top bolt. We're going to remove the 4 bolts out of the bottom of the motor mount using a 14mm socket. Do the same thing on the other side. Remove the last bolt on the motor mount. We're going to pull our motor mount forward. We're going to continue to unscrew the last bolt for the plate. And then remove the plate off of the mount and remove it from the vehicle. We're going to push on this push tab and release the connector. And remove the top of the connector. Using a 14mm socket, remove the bolt for the bracket. On the back of this gray connector, there's going to be a push tab. We're going to pull that tab up, and then we're going to remove the connector off of the bracket. I'm going to push that down out of the way. Then I'm going to pull the rest of this harness up out of the way. Pull back the boot on the starter. There's going to be a 13mm nut. Go ahead and loosen that, and we'll remove it. There will be a lock washer under the nut. And remove the cable. There's one more connector up top. There should be a little boot on this. Ours was broken and ripped off. You're just going to pull straight back and pull that off the terminal. Remove the harness connector off the bracket on the starter. There's going to be a little tab on the top side. We're going to push up on that and then pull the plastic off of the bracket. Using a 14mm socket, remove the 2 starter bolts. The bottom bolt is holding on the bracket for the O2 sensor. Remove the starter. Reach down and grab the motor mount. We're going to twist this up onto end. And squeak it out. When we install this new motor mount, we're going to install it with this tab facing the front of the vehicle. So it'll sit in like this. Install the motor mount into the vehicle. Make sure that tab is facing the front. Install all 4 bolts into the motor mount. If you're struggling to get these bolts from the top, you may be able to access them from the bottom. Snug the bolts down. And torque them to 28 foot-pounds. Before installing the bracket, we're going to put in our bottom right bolt and then install the bracket into the vehicle. Get the bolt started for the bracket. You may need to go up or down on your jack during this process to be able to fit up the bolts into the correct spot. Snug down the motor mount bracket bolts. Torque the engine mount bolts to 28 foot-pounds. Install the top nut for the motor mount. Before tightening the top nut on our motor mount bracket, we're going to remove the jack from the vehicle. This will put all of the weight onto the motor mount from the bracket. Torque the top nut to 55 foot-pounds. We're going to install the weighted ballast. Line the holes up, and then get the bolts started. If you're struggling to get the bolts started on the bottom, put a little bit of tape inside of your socket and then put the bolt in and hold it nice and snug and won't fall out as you try to put it in. Snug the bolts down and make them nice and tight. Before installing the starter, be sure that you have the gasket on it. And we're going to drop it into the vehicle. Line the bolts up for the starter and get them started. Before installing the bottom bolt on the starter, be sure that you have the O2 sensor bracket installed onto the bolt. And then install the bolt into the starter. Snug down the starter bolts. Torque the starter bolts to 33 foot-pounds. Install the plastic stay onto the bracket. Pull back the boot and install the line onto the post. Install the lock washer first, and then install the nut. Snug the nut down and torque it to 7 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, do the best you can. And then install the boot over the connection. Find the second connector and install it onto the terminal. Push it straight on. There should be a rubber boot around this. Ours is missing. We're going to pull our bracket back over and install the bolt. Snug the bolt down. Connect the O2 sensor to the connector. Give it a pull, make sure it's locked in. And on the back side, there's going to be a little U shape, and that's going to slide onto our metal bracket and hold the sensor. Install the dipstick. Install the battery. Hook the poles into the hooks at the bottom of the tray and tighten down the wing nuts. Install the positive battery cable. Snug it down. Install the negative battery cable. Snug it down. And you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.